I think with this golf course, only up until a certain point. We've seen what's happened here the last 2 U.S. Opens.
Professional golf is about to take its biggest swing in decades. And just before it happens, one of the sport's own stars is putting his hand up to say, wait, not to attack a rival tour, not to throw shade at a fellow player. He's questioning the plan his own tour is about to lock in. Next week, PGA Tour Commissioner Brian Rowlap is set to deliver what could be the most consequential update of his tenure. A first real look at how the tour intends to restructure itself for the future. It's the kind of announcement that decides which tournaments rise, which ones quietly fade, and which players get the keys to the sport's biggest stages. And right as that moment approaches, Rory McIlroy has gone public with a warning nobody was expecting. He's not alone either, and some of the most storied events in golf history could end up as collateral damage in a redesign most fans haven't even fully understood yet. So what's actually being proposed? Why is one of the world's best players suddenly defending the system everyone thought was outdated? And why might the next 2 weeks end up reshaping professional golf for the next decade? Here's what McIlroy actually said, heading into this year's U.S. Open. After years of the PGA Tour scrambling to answer every move LIV Golf made, bigger purses, smaller fields, constant schedule tinkering, McIlroy suggested something most people in golf weren't ready to hear. Maybe the old system worked better than anyone gave it credit for. That's a remarkable thing for him to say. For 3 years, the entire conversation around the tour has been about reinvention. Every decision framed as a necessary response to an existential threat. So what happens when one of the sport's most influential voices starts wondering if the response went further than it needed to? At the center of his concern is a 2-track model currently being discussed inside tour leadership. On paper, it sounds clean. Track 1 becomes the premium tier, somewhere between 12 and 16 elite events, the 4 majors, the Players' Championship, the FedEx Cup playoffs, and marquee international competitions like the Ryder Cup and President's Cup. The best players, the richest purses, the most television coverage. Track 2 becomes everything else, a tier players compete in to try to climb into Track 1, modeled loosely on the promotion and relegation systems you see in soccer leagues around the world. It sounds tidy in a boardroom. McIlroy thinks it could be a problem on the ground. His blunt assessment, Track 2 risks becoming little more than a feeder circuit, a tier nobody takes seriously once the label sticks. But here's what almost nobody is asking yet. What happens to a tournament that spent decades building its reputation the moment it gets quietly sorted into the lesser tier? And that's where this stops being an abstract org chart debate and starts being personal for golf fans. Take the RBC Canadian Open, one of the oldest national championships in the sport, with a century of history behind it. Under the proposed system, a tournament like that could get sorted into Track 2. McIlroy's worry isn't really about brackets or tiers. It's about what happens the moment a tournament gets publicly labeled secondary. Sponsors recalibrate. Broadcasters recalibrate. Players start picking their schedules differently, and prestige, once it's gone, is brutally hard to rebuild, no matter how good the golf course is. McIlroy's real argument goes one level deeper than the tiers themselves, though. He's questioning the premise behind the entire redesign. Rewind to 2022. LIV Golf's arrival blew up the competitive landscape almost overnight. 9-figure contracts, guaranteed money, top players walking away from the tour entirely. The PGA Tour had no choice but to respond aggressively. Bigger purses, signature events, a complete overhaul aimed at keeping its stars in-house. So here's the question worth sitting with. If you build an entire strategy to fight off a threat, and that threat starts to cool down, do you keep fighting the war you already won, or do you risk fighting it forever out of habit? That's not a rhetorical jab at the tour. It's the exact fork in the road McIlroy says leadership is standing at right now, whether they realize it or not. He's not the only legend raising a flag either. Jack Nicklaus, 18 majors, about as much credibility as golf has to offer, has separately pushed back on another piece of the plan, the scheduling changes that would cluster marquee events closer together on the calendar. His concern is less about tiers and more about burnout, both for players and for the events themselves, if too much gets crammed into too short a stretch. When Nicklaus and McIlroy are independently uneasy about the same broad direction, even if their specific objections differ, that tends to get the rest of the sport's attention. Worth noting, McIlroy isn't in the room for any of this. He's not on the committee shaping the proposal. He's commenting from the outside, as a player watching the plan take shape rather than someone defending or attacking his own handiwork. That's part of why his skepticism is landing differently than the usual player complaints about scheduling or money. All of this comes to a head fast. A policy board vote is expected before the Travelers' Championship, and if it passes, the framework for this new era of the PGA Tour moves from theory to reality. Brian Rolap's update next week could be the clearest signal yet of which direction the tour is actually heading. McIlroy's comments don't settle the argument. They just force it into the open right before the decision gets locked in. And that leaves one question nobody in golf can answer yet. Is the tour about to build a stronger future or quietly trade away the parts of its past it can't get back? If you want the breakdown the moment Rolap's announcement drops, subscribe and turn on notifications. This story is moving fast, and you'll want to be first to know where it lands.